Good morning. A glad welcome may we bring to each other this morning, filled with the desires, hopes, and dreams we all share. I'm Dave Cook, your service coordinator for today, and thank you to John Atwood for providing our music. If you're new to North Chapel, welcome. If you're visiting, please consider signing the guest book at the back of the sanctuary. We have hearing assistance devices and large print versions of the hymns and the order of service on the back table should you need them. Tatum Barnes will be leading spiritual exploration this Sunday with the kids. After the service, we invite you to visit with each other. You can join us for coffee in the social hall downstairs. You will find announcements and upcoming events in the order of service. Now, Mary Blanton has a special announcement.
Good morning and happy post-Thanksgiving. If you are hungry for summer, you can go downstairs after the service, and Madeline has greens, her hydroponic greens. So a taste of summer awaits you down in the social hall.
Last September, I read an article about an Italian priest named Don Luigi Ciotti. The piece seized my imagination, and I've been trying to figure out why. So here are some of my musings about it. His has been a lifelong attempt to grant dignity to the powerless, helping people living on the street in Turin and people trying to escape the clutches of the mafia. Since he was in high school in the 50s. I don't know about you, but my high school years were concerned more about my social life than about the lives of people around me. His theology I can identify with. He quotes his friend, Tonino Bello, the Bishop of Molfetta. I don't care who God is. It's enough for me to know what he stands for. Regarding a young mafia member that he plans to visit in prison, saying he'll simply listen to him, he says, I go from the point of view that he's just another human. It's what you should do. Don Ciotti's outlook on life I can identify with. Quote, you have one life. Find your calling and live your life. And basta. That's enough. Unquote. So what do I take from learning about this man, Don Ciotti? I want to be like him with his clarity of purpose, his energy, his dedication, and his vision. May we all have those qualities. We'll now have a brief time of meditation.
Okay, well, the camera's working. Good morning. I believe I'm here today because I've had the pleasure of working with a few members of this UU community. And over the last few years, more than once, I've been asked, how do I do it all? How do I seemingly balance the 24-hour requirements of running a diversified organic farm with all of my creative pursuits? You might not know, but I'm a cellist and I'll be playing here in a couple of weeks. But people often tell me I make them tired just hearing what I do between the hours of 3 and 9 a.m. And in response, I shrug my shoulders and I say I just do it. And that usually redirects the conversation, and thank goodness. Because it would take a lot more of my precious time if they asked me why I do it instead of how. And I'd have to pour us a cup of tea and say how much time you got. But today I have about 15 minutes, so won't go on and on. But here it goes. I'm gonna try to explain my why and why I believe in being tired on purpose and why I choose intentional imbalance and why I think tiredness can be useful and perhaps a necessary call to action. So to begin with, let's just set up this linguistic board game and define tiredness. Tiredness can mean exhaustion, fatigue, sleeplessness, drowsiness, worn out, dragged, depleted, weariness, lethargy, listlessness. But tiredness can also mean, when it's used for a synonym for fed up, we have the meanings of disgusted, sick and tired, displeased, annoyed, discontented, and also weary. So tiredness appears to be a word that is a polysem for anyone who's a Latin or a linguist. And that's a word that can have more than one meaning, but each of the meanings have a similar root. So it appears that from Rosa Parks' quote that you saw in the program today, she said that the only tired I was tired of giving in. And so we see right away that she knew the word tired can have a few different meanings and that there were different kinds of tired. And in this case, one tired is physiological, like exhausted, and the other tired is being fed up, as in social, emotional, spiritual depletion. And she said she chose the action based upon the latter. She was correcting people who tried to minimize her action, implying that she was just exhausted from the day's work. While that may have been true, it was not her truth. Rosa was sick and tired of injustice. She understood activism and took action as part of a coordinated campaign, knowing that she would likely be arrested. It would have been easier to just give in, but in choosing defiance, she chose the harder route, the one that would use her mental, spiritual, and emotional energy. One that would make her a different kind of tired. And I'd like to suggest that her actions made her purposefully tired, intentionally tired, a good tired. In my reflections on this, I find myself thinking about the relationship between the types of tiredness. And I wondered if the physiological tiredness is what kickstarts the spirit into action and makes the good tiredness. Could being physically tired be a prerequisite for distress? And could distress, being sick and tired, be required to take action needed to create positive change? Something like the idea that you need to hit rock bottom to start climbing out. So I did some more exploring on this idea. And as reported in the NIH, there was a study done on the effects of winter's shortest days on people living above the Arctic Circle in Tromsø, North Norway. Now, it had some surprising results. So first of all, do you think that they found that the shorter days of winter interrupt our sleep cycle? How many of you have sleep issues in winter? And living in the northern state of Vermont, It's no surprise to any of us that indeed they found significantly more participants reported insomnia and sleeping problems in winter than in other seasons. So if you raise your hands or nod your head, you're just as normal as a Norwegian. But there was another part to this study, and it had to do, this is where there were surprising results. They also reported there was no significant difference in the reporting of current mental distress depending on the season. Now, I know a lot of people I talk to in the winter seem to quite focus on the stress of their sleeplessness. But the study found out that sleepy northerners are more tired and yet not more distressed. Huh. See, I think the key here is seasonal, because in winter, we know that spring is around the corner, and the days will get longer, and the trees will turn green. And even if we are more tired, it's seasonal, and hope is budding within the trees, and soon the sap will be flowing up. But I wonder, does hope divert the distress from tiredness? So when looking at physiological tiredness, we should also highlight that there are challenges that come with chronic illness and the unique tiredness that comes from dealing with the medical system. Now, both diseases and the medical system that profit from them are outright exhausting. And there is also clinical sleepiness, not necessarily tied to winter. And that certainly causes a lot of distress. And the medical sleep condition called idiopathic hypersomnia carries with it all kinds of negative, distressful symptoms, including the disruption of daily functions and cognitive impairment. But these are extremes. And one other extreme we can't ignore is the torture techniques used of sleep deprivation for intentional disorientation. But aside from the extremes, can we surmise then that tiredness is diverse? That there are tiredness that is extreme from sleep deprivation and disease, and that tiredness from torture is bad, and that seasonal sleep loss, not necessarily distressful, and maybe we can say that intentional tiredness comes from, say, if we stay up all night and watch the New Year's arrive, that's not bad. Actually, that's fun. And that perhaps physiological tiredness is good if we believe it's not permanent and we are hopeful. But maybe going back to my earlier question, hope is not necessarily what diverts tiredness from distress. I have had a friend so full of cancer that was most hopeful for a cure, but her severe exhaustion was deeply distressful. So it seems to me that the spirit that is tired and still hopeful is powerful. Hope seems to be important to being good tired. I'm pretty sure Rosa was hopeful that engaging in activism, while it was scary and exhausting, she hoped to create change. And I'm pretty sure someone needs hope and a hand to climb up from the depleted exhaustion of that rock bottom. Maybe hope does not solely divert tiredness from despair and distress, but it seems to be a tool that helps the weary persevere. After all, hope gives strength. A mom in labor needs hope to handle the exhaustion, the pain, the tiredness, and the work at hand. So I wonder, is choosing tired on purpose, is that just being hopeful that your depletion of time and energy is temporarily valuable? As I reflected more on this topic, I encountered a word that was new to me. Maybe it's new to you too. The word is eustress. Have you heard of this? Well, eustress comes from the Greek prefix good, and it is defined as good stress, which is the opposite of distress or bad stress. And examples of this include life changes, like starting a new job or parenting children or new experiences like traveling. We know it's stressful, but it's eustress. Trying and learning something new and physical challenges like running a race or the butterflies or performing on stage or in a sports game. All of those things seem very scary, and for sure they're tiring, very tiring. But the benefits of this kind of stress are very healthy. And psychologists say it's an important part of being motivated, feeling positive and optimistic and having meaning and purpose in life. So perhaps intentionally choosing to do something that takes extra energy, that makes you physically and even emotionally tired, can be good if it's not prolonged or extreme. Perhaps good tiredness is actually just good stress, eustress. To achieve eustress, it takes intentional imbalance, intentional discomfort. Those airplane seats are really small. Intentional inconvenience. And there are chores, the chores of meetings and communicating and planning and rehearsals and long hours of practicing. And that implies that the seeker of eustress is not, despite all of this, distressed. That they have hope, that their basic needs are met, and that they have a supportive community, guidance, and inspiration. Now, all of this eustress can actually lead to seeking eudaimonia, which is another word I didn't know. But it's from the EU Greek prefix, and it just means a life well lived. However, it cannot be ignored that the ability to seek eustress and eudaimonia implies a whole lot of privilege. This got me thinking, if so many people have privilege, the basics to seek eustress and a notable, worthy life, well, why don't they? And that word tiredness, as in sleepy, bounced back right into my thoughts, and perhaps they don't seek the challenges of eustress because they are sleepwalking. Some people are just comfortable in their status quo. They really prefer predictability and seem content as their ship floats randomly toward their end of days. And they remain sleepwalking unless something, illness, extreme acts of weather, an accident, a pandemic, rocks their ship. And it happens to wake them up. And once woke, they may realize that they are following a course that they did not set. Awoken from their metaphorical slumber, they may suddenly feel physically and emotionally exhausted, really, really tired. Perhaps they're tired of dancing on the puppet strings of a wealth extractor in a place they call work. Perhaps they're tired of systemic racism and giving in. And this may call them to action, to quit a job, to start something new, to get involved in politics or activism. And it may call them to eustress, but it may not. Without experience or practice with eustress, they are unlikely to employ it. They may just experience the weight of their tiredness as distress. They may become angry and look for hope in a bottle or a politician or a convenient scapegoat, a place that they can deflect their distress by assigning the blame for their feeling of malaise and powerlessness and despair and hopelessness. And in reference to their hopelessness, we circle back to the importance of that word again, hope. We surmise that hope gives strength and that it's critical to accepting tiredness and embracing change. But where does hope come from? I don't know. Could it be faith? I think it might come from a loving, supporting community, but I don't know. But I do think hope is necessary. I do think that Rosa Parks was both physiologically and socially tired, and that her supportive community of fellow activists may have given her the hope that the exhausting work of resisting racism was valuable. Perhaps she knew she would feel something like eustress, not distress from her actions. Or maybe her actions help her discover eustress. But to this outside observer, it seemed that her eustressful actions gave meaning to her life, and it made her story an important one, a lesson to us all. I think what I learned from preparing this reflection on tiredness is that my days, my story, makes other people tired because I have a lot of eustress in my life. And that some people, it may seem like distress and exhaustion. But to me, eustress, while requiring hope, is also a fuel for hope. It is the currency of my hours and minutes, and if I'm hopeful and excited each day as it unfolds at dawn, I will wake up at 3 a.m. and wait for the dawn to arrive and welcome it, along with my roosters at Roof's Farm. And I will really get tired mentally and emotionally after some very sad days. But I still make time to practice my cello, bake scones, check in on a family or a friend in need. Because connecting with community, creating music, baking something new every day is just part of that path of eustress for me. It's like the passing of winter. I know that some sleeplessness and tiredness, it's temporary. And the knowledge of springtime is the hope to just get us on to the next challenge. I think I'm tired on purpose. I think it's because it is what makes my life seem fulfilled. My path to eudaimonia. I think the imbalance that comes from the changing light of the seasons and is just right for me. Longer work days in summer, longer thinking days in winter. A harmonious imbalance. And I think that tiredness with hope and a plan and a supportive community can be a call to action. And that action, the responsibility of privilege and community, is that those who can must take the action needed on behalf of those who cannot. And in my life, on the farm, my call to action, it's to care for the earth, the health of its soil, and to help it produce healthy food for creatures. And I guess because a lot of soil science is new and that learning something new is eustress, I see great value in growing food and learning to serve the land. And as to my why am I tired? I'm tired because I'm active and hopeful and healthy and supported and not sleepwalking. My intentional, purposeful tiredness comes from using my privilege to help and to know that my eustress is my path to eudaimonia. Yeah, like many of you, I'm a mom, a wife, a sister, a friend, a community member. I'm also a cellist, a steward, a farmer, a student, a teacher, seamstress, a technologist, a writer, an artist, and I happily dance from one of those to the other, sometimes all in one day. And yes, I am mostly tired most of the time. But my truth is, it's a very good tired. And thus I owe you thanks. Thanks for this challenge to speak today. It got me off the farm. It got me to use my contemplative winter insomnia time to prepare this reflection. And to all of you for this opportunity to learn a new word, eustress, and to take action on it by sharing this all with you today. Thank you.